Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars, and part 3 of Clay Curtis. I'm very proud to present this episode. We talk about why you shouldn't start a car with your hand through the window. And we also talk about my experience with a Bentley laying rubber in reverse into a new Rolls Royce. That and more coming up. Make sure to subscribe at the bottom so you get notifications of new videos, and leave a comment. Tell a friend too. See you at the end.
So I hit that thing, it's in reverse. It flies backwards.
And he got this car going so sideways for so long. And this, a mid-engine V8, 2,300 pound, and he gets this car sideways, and we go all the way up the lawn sideways. The car lays rubber in reverse, goes straight into the Rolls-Royce Seraph.
We really like people, right? And so we like to make people feel good, right? We're servers, right? We like to see the reaction from somebody that you've done something really good for. Like that one athlete whose car came in subject to the car being as described, but looked like strippers with stilettos were doing jumping jacks in the back seats of the convertible, and it had a bunch of pigeon duties in it. Birds would fly into the rafters. They drop the crabs from the top of the rafters all the way to the floor. It would break open the shell, and they were able to eat the meat. Except when the warehouse is filled with a bunch of brand new Bentleys.
Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
And so Lotuses, the new Elises, were new that year. So this was probably, 05-ish, something like that. So we're in downtown Celebration, which is like Disney Wonderland, right? And I'm working the crowds. I have a set out of cars. And so I have one person that's really interested in buying one, and he wanted to drive it. And I knew he was legit because he and I had circled the ring a little bit in the past. And so I said, listen, when the show ends and everyone's starting to pack up, I'll let you go for a drive, right? So I don't know if any of you viewers in podcast land know this or not, but the Lotus Elises have a push button start. Okay, they're all manual, push button start. So I reached into the car like I've done 1,000 times, grabbed the shifter, make sure it was in neutral without getting in it. I wanted the guy to get in it. I was presenting the car to him to drive. Past driver's doors open. I'm standing right in the 90-degree point of that open door. And I'm going to get it fired up for him and let him take it for a spin. Already have his driver's license, everything. I hit the starter, but keys are in, hit the starter button. Car was still in reverse. So when I hit that thing, in Celebration, they have iron trash cans that are bolted into the concrete on the ground. So I hit that thing, it's in reverse, it flies. And I'm standing next to another trash can that's like by my door. It flies backwards, smashes the whole rear. Now, again, for those viewers out there, a Lotus Elise had 4 body parts, 2 doors, front clamshell, rear clamshell. That's it, right? So it goes slamming into this iron in front of this guy, in front of like customers and like people around. It slams into with its back into the iron trash can that doesn't budge, thank God. But as it does that, the door catches on like a pole that I was standing next to and bends it forward. So the door gets snapped, the front clamshell gets snapped, and the car's got 13 miles on it. And the guy looks at me and says, I guess no test drive. I'm like, no test drive. So I have it dragged into the trailer, brought back to the dealership. Our leader, illustrious leader at the time, looks at me and reads me the riot act. He's like, you've busted 3 out of 4 panels on this car, and it's totally your fault. And this is on you. You got to sell this car. Like, this is on you. This is your problem. You fucking fix it, right? So I'm sweating it, man. I mean, I think I'm going to lose my job. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to be insurable through the dealership, which is a whole nother story. So I'm really sweating it. And so it gets put back in the body shop to get worked on and everything. They hadn't sprayed it yet. They had just got the new clamshells in. And I have a client of mine that I sold a bunch of Bentleys to. And he comes in and looks me in the eye, and I'm like, Tony, what's up? You want, are we looking at another Bentley here? And he goes, no, I just got engaged and my girl wants one of them Lotuses. He goes, here's the catch. He goes, she wants it to be painted to match her favorite nail polish. He goes, how much is this going to cost me? And please be gentle. Right?
Perfect.
I take them back to the body shop. They're just putting the clamshells on. They haven't sprayed them yet.
What color do you want? Show it to me.
I was like, give me a sample. I'll paint it for free because I have to do it anyway. I told him the whole story. I'm like, listen, this wasn't wrecked. It was just cracked clamshell. It's got 13 miles on it and new, a new door panel. And I was like, I'll paint it for you for free if you pay me sticker for the car. And he's like, deal, make it happen. We painted it a metallic pink and he took delivery of it 3 weeks later. And that was all she wrote.
That's a beautiful story.
Sometimes it's better, like you always said, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
For sure.
Yep.
And when I mentioned the Lotus going up onto the lawn, after I said it and you started telling your story, I realized that was me.
Yes.
That it happened to. We were down. So for the listeners, how we would market these cars. And when Clay had mentioned that before he started, that we made him go to a lot of events. We used to have a friend. Well, we made friends with a transporter named Ron. And he got a 3-car hauler that he would tow behind a diesel pickup fifth wheel.
That's right.
And he was so great because we would have events down at private residences in Sarasota or the Ritz-Carlton in Sarasota or the Jetport in Naples or the whatever, whatever, Lakeland Speedway. And he'd just come pick up 3 cars that we were going to put on display or 2 trips for 6 cars.
That's right.
But we were doing this like 2, 3 times. I mean, we were wearing tuxedo 1, 2, 3 times a week. I mean, it was crazy.
Yep.
We were even flying that private, we were chartering that prop plane.
The King Air.
Oh my God, the King. No, I think it was a twin Baron.
Down to Davy.
We're talking about Steve Fox, Clearwater Aviation, who I still talk to, by the way. And I'll have to have him on. So, I mean, we were just doing this so often that we would just charter a prop plane so we could work and make our phone calls as late as possible. That's really all it was about. It wasn't about being a big shot because we were going to drive 2 or 3 hours of direction. So at least we could do it in an hour.
And with all of us stuffed in it actually was less than flying commercial.
Yeah. So, and Ron, the truck driver, would have the cars on display when we got to wherever we were going. And I remember at the party in Naples I think this was at some like $14 million house in Naples that the developer or the realtor wanted us to invite our customers to for obvious reasons to see the house. And we were happy to have them in the motor court, as Woody would say, the motor court.
Oh, God, I love it.
And one of our very, very good customers that I won't name here, but you know him, young, good-looking guy with no one to play with all the time over, asks me if he could drive Lotus Esprit. And we're in this neighborhood, and how can I say no to the guy? So very, very good customer, buying cars from us all the time, hanging out with the other dealership friends all the time. And the listener needs to know that we had a liquor cabinet and snacks, and these customers would come meet.
Casino. We were trying to get oxygen pumped in there and have no clocks on the walls, but
you're right. It was like it was like a speakeasy. I mean, it was when we closed the place, they'd come in and start meeting there and meeting each other and pulling with their cars. It was really quite a dynamic that I don't think many dealerships or clients of dealerships enjoyed, and I don't think that particular place is had quite that vibe.
I had totally forgotten about that. That was truly one of the things that made us unique. We would socialize with our customers while they were going through their purchase. And of course, your rule was always no drinking while working.
They can drink. You ain't going to drink.
We ain't going to drink. Yep.
It was like Schindler's List. Let the Nazis drink.
Yep.
So this guy who was our phenomenal customer lets me know that he's got race training and he really wants to go try this Esprit. I think he had a couple cocktails. I'm trying to talk him out of it, but how do you say no to this guy who might buy a car every 6 weeks? I mean, and, come with his friend. So we go out in the Lotus Esprit and we're still in this neighborhood under development. Thank God. I mean, I could imagine someone pushing their baby buggy across the street. And someone's lawn went up, not at a 45 degree, but at a 25 degree. And he got this car going so sideways for so long. And this, a mid-engine V8, 2,300 pound. And he gets this car sideways and we go all the way up the lawn sideways. I'm like, how could we be going uphill? We're like going uphill. We're not stopping. I'm waiting to stop. We're not stopping. We're going up the hill. And we actually had to have Ron we walked back to the party because it was buried. The belly pan was stuck on the ground. And Ron, the transporter, we're like, hey man, we're heading to the airport. We're, to the propeller plane to take us home. Have fun getting the stuck Esprit that's 15 feet up this lawn.
Yep.
So
was that the blue one?
I want to say yellow, but I don't know.
We had a yellow, blue, and gray before they stopped making.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have to tell the story related to your Elise with the stick shift hitting the starter button.
Yes.
And this is really, you're saying you're giving the show back to me, but this is really about you. I mean, it's really about the guest, but forget it. I'm taking over on this.
I could be over. Yeah.
So customer comes in, just retired CEO of a very large, well-known, if I said the name, you'd know the name of the company. I'll say it was a battery company. One of the batteries you see when you get a pack of batteries at the grocery store. One of the big, 3 or something. And he goes, hi, I'm so-and-so. I just retired, CEO of X battery. And he was so cute about it. I love the guy because he said, the one that makes the blank battery? Like I wouldn't know this battery that you see on a TV commercial 6 times a night. I'm not saying the name of the battery. He wants a Bentley Arnage. He has not bought a car. He's had a company car for like 30 something years. He's never had to buy a car. He says, I haven't bought a car since I was a kid. Don't hurt me. So for the listener, let me set this up. Our dealership looked like a southern plantation mansion with white pillars out front. Behind that, let's say large pillared house was a space between it and the shop that had 4 lanes, I think, for cars.
The service drive.
Right. But I'm trying to describe it. 4 or 5 lanes and a painted floor. Dead clean. And it was all covered. So we used to keep cars underneath this 4 or 5 lane wide driveway that went probably 5 car lengths long, but between going in and going out. We have a new Bentley Arnage, I want to say 99. And we have a new Rolls Royce Silver Seraph, also 99 or 00, parked because it had to be 99 because we only had a couple cars before we got heavy in cars. Parked one in front of the other. He's in the Bentley. If I recall, the color was sunset. So that would be like that
beautiful
root beer.
Maroon,
burgundy root beer with a Magnolia, which is a cream leather. I think it was gorgeous with all the wood and all the smell. 12 cows died for the interior, as Woody would say. And we're sitting in the car and I'm explaining everything. Now, in front of us in this service drive in the shade are about 15 people playing bingo on a retired church bingo board that was sitting on a base that was like green indoor-outdoor grass carpet, whatever. It was AstroTurf.
AstroTurf.
And it was a big bingo board with numbers on it. And we had a girl that worked in the dealership who did our PR, and she'd spin the ball or spin the wheel, and the balls would fly around, and she'd pull a ping pong ball out with a number and call it. And these people were sitting in like student chairs with the little desk in front playing bingo. These were the retired Cadillac DeVille drivers that were waiting for their car in service. There was 10 or 15 of those in front of us. All right. Behind us is the Rolls in the lane. In front of us are the bingo players, probably 10, 15 feet in front of us. While the car's running, and also your Ford GT story made me think of it when you told the guy, slow down. This fella's foot is on the gas. The car's so quiet. I mean, these Bentleys and Rolls, you'd roll the window down, you'd hear the lawnmower next door. You roll the window up, you don't hear it. Triple pane glass, insulation. The car is revving. I look over at the tach. It's probably 2,000, 2,200, 2,300 RPM while we're sitting there in park. I'm getting ready to tell him, probably thinks his foot's on the brake because no one would put their foot on the gas like that while you're in park. These cars had a quirk that the shifter on the center console in a Bentley, all you had to do is lift the shifter. You didn't have to push a safety button or anything like or a release. You'd lift the shifter and just pull it back, and it would flop into reverse. I mean, the beauty of it is it felt like silk. It felt like nothing.
Waftability.
The danger of it was we were going however many RPM. I'm about to tell him that his foot's on the gas, not freaked out about it until I see his hand reach for the shifter. And I say his name, and I literally put my hands around his leg and pull back on his leg. I probably shaved a few hundred RPM. I already was taking the pressure off his leg, and I'm waiting for him to throw it in drive. And I got 10 or 15 retirees in student chairs playing bingo in front of us. And this is a 5,500 pound car with 500 foot-pounds of torque. Or that was maybe the first year. So it might've been the 4.4 liter. So it might've only been 400 foot-pounds.
487 foot.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Thank God he threw it in reverse. The car lays rubber in reverse. Goes straight into the Rolls Royce Seraph. Breaks the parking pin on the Rolls Royce Seraph, and it's like, ooh, 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 and just rolling back into the open space of the drive back there.
Oh my God.
He does manage to get his foot off the gas onto the brake, and I do manage to throw it in park for him, and he is white, and I gotta go. And I'm like, I spent an hour and a half with the guy. I heard the battery story. I liked him a lot. He's on the car that he wants. We're getting ready to go for a test drive. Now you want to leave?
Now, those we've all been in those situations, and I think what another thing that separates those that are good at what they do in this industry and not is still being able to be unflappable. And making the customer feel good, even though they screwed up. How many times have we seen customers come in and, they dropped a weed whacker on their front quarter panel, or, their wife walked by the car with her fancy purse with a bunch of like metal bling on it and like chipped it up and stuff, that's one of the things we talked about before earlier in the podcast about, sometimes some dishonesty with the clients. But this was also, you had to also be able to parry to, listen, they're coming to you in need. They're bummed out. They know they made a mistake, right? And you need to be there to give them the hug and to tell them it's okay. And
we were their therapist.
Yes,
we were their priest.
Right. And that's truly what it was. Like, and listen, they would tell us things that they wouldn't tell anybody else, right? I mean, we kept how many times do we keep confidences between customers and significant others?
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, and it wasn't, And it wasn't all bad stuff like,
No,
don't tell her about
like trying to surprise them with car.
Well, or how about the customer that in their condo had a parking garage floor that the wife didn't know about with half a dozen cars on it? They'd get off the elevator for their 2 cars. She didn't know there was another 6. And he's like, I'm trading them in. You can't say anything to her. I don't even want to say her name because it's a real story. You can't say anything to her, but you can send the truck. I'll meet you on that floor. Don't call. Don't leave messages. Don't do anything. And I'll bring my 4 trade-in. Oh, my God. But this fella that crashed the Bentley into the Rolls, so I got a couple of $250,000 stickers that we crashed into each other. I did let him know that it happens all the time and he needs to calm down and not beat himself up. It happens all the time. And
all the time.
It was only the bumper cover on each car, thank God, other than the parking pin on the Rolls. And I did sell him that car.
Well, of course you did. He was obligated.
Well, I was a little nervous because after I calmed him down, he still had to go. And I called him however many days later that it's fixed and can we talk about it again? And he was just a little too messed up. He just couldn't.
Well, no, but those are sorts of things like truly, like you said, we're therapists for these people. It's like, listen, man, that stuff happens. Just last week, I crashed a $400,000 Phantom long wheelbase into a Lotus. Like, it's okay. Even though it's not true, your job is to make them feel comfortable and make them feel good, and that stuff happens. And truly, I think, at the crux of sales and especially in the automobile business, the crux of it was, like you said, we really like people, right? And so we like to make people feel good, right? We're servers, right? We like to see the reaction from somebody that you've done something really good for, right?
That's why we still remember who they are 15 years later, 20 years later.
Exactly. I mean, you had relationships, you vacationed with them, your wives were best friends. I mean, we've all had those kinds of relationships, but, I think in that high end side of the business, relationships were everything. And people say that as a cliche in all sorts of different sales or business things. You'll listen to all sorts of, guys telling you relationships are key, but truly, like in this business, it was the case. I mean, I know you were the same as I was, where after you did a couple deals with your clients, with a new client with cars, when you finally prove to them that you treat them right and you take care of them, like I never once lied to a customer outright, right? Never. And once they
well, wait a minute. Other than the kind of lie that would be like, do these pants make my butt look big? Kind of.
Well, of course, yes. Your wife is beautiful. Oh, yeah, of course. Those, but never about the purchase of a car, right?
No. You'd be straight if they asked you a pointed question. You answered straight, yes.
Yeah, but it got to the point where you had a customer come back to you that you sold a few cars to, and negotiations were tough the first few times, but you were honest with them. You were legit. You did what you say you were going to do when you said you were going to do it, right? So then the next time they come in, car 3, they're like, hey, this is what I'm looking at. Same deal as before, like you'll take care of me? Of course. When you want it delivered, I'll do the paperwork on your kitchen table. And at that point, it got to be where there's almost no negotiations. The negotiations, if somebody wanted a car, we were able to provide it to them, and they knew they were getting taken care of. The only times negotiations really started happening is when we had something really rare, or they were trying to trade us something really not good, right? Or we had a hard time placing or something like that. That's where you got into the mix. But if it was a straight buy, and as you had clients, you would prep them for valuation of the car that they just bought when they traded in a year. Like I had a client who was an athlete, and he bought a Phantom, and he wanted to put 24-inch rims on it and paint it purple. And I said, Athlete X, if you paint this car purple, it will be $200,000 less than what it would be if you left it at the factory when you traded it into me. And when you put those 24s on it, you're putting baloney skins on your rims and the ride is going to be terrible. You're going to hate it. And you're going to call me and tell me that the ride is terrible. And I'm going to tell you it's not the car, it's your rims. And so he's like, I know, I got it. Lo and behold, he's coming to trade the car back in a year and a half later, and it's purple with those big rims all chopped up and the wheel wells all chewed and everything. I mean, I told him I don't even know if I could put a number on the car, right? How many times a week could, like, your car is so like I have to be careful not using names. Like that one athlete whose car came in subject to the car being as described, but looked like strippers with stilettos were doing jumping jacks in the back seats of the convertible, and it had a bunch of pigeon duties in it and 400 yards of speaker wire. So, those are sort of things that I think when you're in the sales process, you develop such relationships that, it's almost, obviously without screwing them up and messing them up, it becomes more of a socializing, relationship-driven thing. There's almost no sales involved unless you get sideways with somebody. It's more that you're maintaining the relationship with the person. You're maintaining, that consistency of doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And that, for all the listeners out there, that's something that's invaluable in life lessons alone. And if you can develop relationships with people that are extremely wealthy and are always trying and always have people trying to chew into what they're doing, and, people trying to, get their pound of flesh and everything, when you can get to the point where you can gain and maintain the trust of people like that in an environment like car sales, then you've really, it's a talent, and it takes maintenance. You have to water those flowers.
And
right?
You know what? It also takes some things going wrong, because some of the best relationships I developed were when something just absolutely mind-bendingly terrible happened. Car falling off a lift, brand new car coming in with paintwork or painted tail light right off the truck.
The stories about the crabs being dropped on the cars and the warehouses and the Bentleys. Do you remember that?
Maybe that was after me. I don't think I'd forget that one.
When Bentley had to change they used to bring their cars into South Carolina, I think Charleston, right, was the port of entry for them, at least for us Southerners, our Southeasterners. And we started receiving cars, they're in a bag and everything, zipped up. For those of you that don't know, they literally came in like a Ziploc. And when you did your PDI, which is known as a
pre-delivery inspection,
you pull all that off, you get it prepped and ready, everything done. But we were having pinhole type dents in the hoods or the bonnets and the roofs of these brand new cars that are coming from factory. And nobody could figure out what happened until finally they went to the factory, and someone just stood, not the factory, at the warehouse where they were keeping the cars once they offloaded them. And someone just stood in there, was like, what's happening in here? Bird flies in with a crab because the top was open. Birds would fly into the rafters. They drop the crabs from the top of the rafters all the way to the floor. It would break open the shell, and they were able to eat the meat. Except when the warehouse is filled with a bunch of brand new Bentleys, they're still dropping these crabs off the top of these rafters, and they're hitting the hoods and they're hitting the roof, and they're leaving little pinhole dents in it and stuff. They had to move from Charleston to Jersey, I believe. I'm not quite sure about Jersey, but they had to move like all production and input because of birds with crabs.
That is gold, and that is the teaser that's going to go to the front of this podcast before the intro music.
You're welcome.
That's what we were looking for. So what about, for example, I remember our service manager in exotic cars also developed some relationships. And I remember an athlete that would call him 1 or 2 in the morning to come pick him up at the private airport. we were just talking. I was talking to him the other day, and he says, "How about that story for your podcast?" And some of these, I don't want to say athletes, but I want to say people that came into windfalls. So this could be lottery winner. This could be someone that sold a business. This could be someone that got an inheritance. This could be a ball player that got a bonus.
Big bonus.
But people that came into windfalls. I mean, I know there's books been written about lottery winners that go broke and all that business, but we experienced and witnessed many people that any of us normal people would have been set for life on that check.
We're still normal people. We're
Right.
still normal people.
All right. How about this? Me, maybe you would have been set for life on a multi-million dollar or $10 million or $100 million one time or many year payment.
Generational wealth. Yeah.
And we saw some of them go through all of it and go into debt. So I remember this service manager, well, Billy, actually took one of these people that he sold, God knows how many cars to, and was lending him power bill money at one time, lending the customer power bill money, who'd spent tens of millions of dollars on cars over a few years. How would you spend tens of millions of dollars on cars? I can't imagine spending tens of millions of dollars on cars if I didn't have a whole bunch of tens of millions left.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.